Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome to Market Psychology 101, where we look for value in the markets when there's fear and are cautious when there's greed. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the Bitcoin rainbow chart, which is a chart that shows the price of Bitcoin on a logarithmic scale. And a log scale goes up by the value of 10. So you'll see here we have 10, 100,000, 10,000, 100,000, and maybe one day, decades down the road, a million. So Bitcoin right now, its price is at 62.7, near $63,000. You can see in the last month, Bitcoin has been ripping. We were down at 43,000, and we are pretty much $20,000 higher with the price of Bitcoin. So leveled up here a little bit, slowly went sideways for, let's see, February 14th, 26th, 2 weeks, and then shot up real quick. Right now we're accumulating again. So maybe we're getting ready for one more move up. I have my thoughts about where the price of Bitcoin might be. One of those is that maybe going into the halving, we may spike before having a little bit of a correction. For those of you who don't know what this is right here, we spiked here to 49,000 when the Bitcoin ETF was approved. A lot of what's driving the price of Bitcoin, or at least from what I'm seeing in the news, are these different narratives. And so Bitcoin, it's always gaining more and more exposure, and I think the narratives are going to help drive the price more and more, especially now that we do have the ETF approval. But going into the ETF, it was a sell the news event, at least for a little bit. And I'm wondering if the halving is going to be somewhat similar. On the Bitcoin rainbow chart, something I've noted is that each halving we go up a zone or a color band here. So you can see the basically fire sale zone was the first halving, second halving the buy zone, third halving the accumulate zone, fourth halving you would think we'd be in the still cheap zone. And the halving is going to be around the 22nd of April. This is close enough. But you can see that would put the price of Bitcoin somewhere between 52.5 and 68.5. So 52 and 69,000. Is Bitcoin, the price of it, going to be within that range by the halving or at the halving? As of right now, we're pretty much smack in the middle of that. So I think that's very possible. Maybe we'll get up a little bit higher and come back down to it. We'll see. That's happened before. You can see the last cycle, we had that mid-cycle top where we got up right into the middle, the yellow zone. It's kind of no man's land, actually. All three of these zones in here. I don't like to make too many large purchases there. I rather purchase when we're down in these darker blue or that teal zone right there. Not that there aren't any altcoins that you can buy, but if you've been paying attention to the crypto market, a lot of altcoins have started running, especially the lower cap ones. Again, there's still a lot of great gains to be made, but the charts are starting to run up in a way where you are going to be taking on more risk if you're getting into these, just in case there might be a pullback. And if you look at the last couple halvings, there was significant pullbacks at those times. We're going to be taking a look at how big of a pullback those were. Could you say this was a pullback here? Sure, we'll take a look at it. So that's what I'm thinking, is that because we spiked into the ETF, it was sort of a buy the rumor, sell the news event, at least for a little bit, a few weeks, I guess. Let's see if maybe the halving is going to play out the same way. Maybe it's going to get somewhere around that 69,000 level and then towards the halving, and then we will chop down or accumulate for some period of time. We'll see how long. So going back, let's measure the moves of how deep those halving sell-offs went. So here we had actually, let me go on the daily so I can measure out more accurately. Sorry if any of you have a seizure disorder. So the white lines, those are the halvings. Here we had the COVID crash. How big was that halving correction that we had before it? It was about 63%. Now that was the COVID crash, so take from that what you will. That was a black swan event. Right here you can see that at the halving, we had a little bit of a correction as well. So maybe you're just thinking that, you know what, this was different. Maybe just measure what happened right here. At that halving, there was a 20% dip from the high to the low. And what's funny about that, at least with what has been going on this cycle, is that since the bottom of Bitcoin, there have been big 20% corrections, right around that number each time. And so the most recent correction from the ETF approval, I'll try to get this measured as close as I can, that was a 21% correction. And from right here, I know it's not perfect, 21% correction. Right here, 20% correction. And then right here, as we spiked, 22% correction. So we've had pretty much those size corrections 4 times so far. Last halving, even though this looks pretty small, that was a 20% correction. So maybe we're going to get another one of those. Let's go back to the last halving. We'll see if anything happened right on the halving itself or before it that's of note. So we'll zoom way in here. Let's measure out this large move right here. So from the high to the low, Bitcoin sank 40% from the peak of where it was before the halving till after it. So maybe we have one more big correction coming after the halving. If so, and if it plays out similar to this, which happened before the 2017 bull run, that was this right here. And I've wondered about this because we have been slowly grinding up and shooting up here. And I'll show you also how if you take Bitcoin off the log scale, that it's resembling something like this as well. We'll get to that. But right there, what did I say that was? A 40% correction, I believe. Right here, we had a 30% correction going into the halving. And then right as the halving took place, we had a 13% dip. Now, Bitcoin's been looking very, very strong this year, especially with all the ETF news. So 13% dips, though, it doesn't seem like a lot. For many stocks, that is a big deal. For crypto, if you're used to being in crypto, that's not much. 10% dips are pretty common. So if you don't find yourself to be an investor who can handle those types of moves, I would say stick to stocks if you're looking to do more long-term investing. I like to invest in things I like and use, into companies I believe will be around in 10 years. In crypto, because we have this rainbow chart and it's been playing out to it, at least with these 4 different data points that we have here, that if you are to buy into crypto, you're being more of a trade investor. So you're getting in low and you're selling high just because the swings are so great that it's kind of dumb not to sell up here unless you have one of the larger caps with a lot of utility. But if you have one of the lower caps and it does something like a 20 to 50x, of course you should sell. If anything you hold, I don't care if it's Apple or Amazon, Nvidia, whatever, if it goes 20 to 50x, some people get lucky with 100x's. If you get that within a couple of years, take your profits and roll that into something safer so you can keep that money. A lot of people, they'll hold on even as Bitcoin's getting high up into these red rainbow colored bands. And once the sell-off happens from the altcoins, it's brutal. And I remember I sold some crypto here, but after the 8th of January 2018, if you held on too long, the price of many of the alts were lower than they were like down here. So people are breaking even, maybe taking 2 to 4x's when if they sold into the pump, they could have been taking 20 to 50x's. So I didn't make that mistake last time. I sold going up into it, but just be careful. And I'll show you some things you can take a look at to help you there as well. So let's keep going back. We'll go back to the last halving before that. And right here, let's zoom way in. So this was the first halving in 2012. And as you can see, the most major corrections really happened before. So this was in November, and this was way back in August. So I guess this data point really doesn't apply, but if you do want to still consider what that is, maybe it'll show us a pattern or something. So 50%, and then the most recent dip up to it 25%. So are these patterns showing us anything that could possibly happen? Hey, guys, hey, I don't like to get in the business of making predictions based off patterns because it's a good way to look like an idiot. However, I will say when you take a look at the last couple halvings that have happened before, you will see that before the halving and even right on the halving, we had some pretty big moves down. So overall, two halvings ago, that was a 40% correction, and from right on the halving when it happened, 13% correction. And then the last one, of course, we had the COVID crash, which I believe I said was a 60% correction. Yeah. And then right on it, the 20% correction. So if I had to guess, if I had to put my money on what would happen and if there was a correction, like I showed you before, we've had these four 20% corrections. Maybe we're going to get one more of that. It is concerning to me how we were going up at this steady pace here for a little bit, as you can see from around January of 23 till September of 23. So 9 months there, Bitcoin was grinding up and it did a 2x within 9 months. And then within the span of, well, let's take a look at here. The dates are at the bottom. So from mid-October to March now, that's been what, 4.5 months, around there? 4.5 months, we've gone from around 28K, so 30K. So yeah, we've done over a 2x there, 127%. So the rate at which we're climbing is increasing. Okay, it's starting to just shoot up. And that reminds me a little bit of what happened here. From this low to this high, that mid-cycle top, that only took about 5-6 months. And as we start to rip straight up, that's when you can expect these big, large pullbacks, just like back here. As we rip straight up, that's when we can expect these big, large pullbacks. And there are a couple factors that give me concern right now as far as if we're going to get an all-time high early or get into, maybe we'll have an early top instead of this 4-year cycle. So as you can see here, the tops between the prices, this was November of 13. Did I get that right? Yeah. November, December of 2013, November, December 2017, November. This was the true Bitcoin top of 21, even though many of the altcoins and Bitcoin ran in here. That was a better time to sell. There were some altcoins that peaked over here, true. And so people have been wondering, are we going to peak in mid to late 2025? We'll see. Something that is giving me pause right now is Bitcoin dominance. And as you can see with Bitcoin dominance, it has still been trending higher. Something we look for when the altcoin market runs is for the dominance of Bitcoin to crash. And if you don't know what Bitcoin dominance is, the overall percent of money into crypto, 54% of it right now is in Bitcoin. And as that overall percent grows and then crashes down, either money is leaving the markets overall or Bitcoin has gotten so high in the price that that money is rolling into the altcoins, the large caps, and the small caps. And when dominance crashes, that tends to signal the tops. So here you can see this was May of 21. Yes, we had the true top in November. Where was November on here? So November was in here. Bitcoin corrected about 50% in there. I would have sold in here. Well, I did sell in here and just forgotten about it. But if we do something like this again, guys, and I see Bitcoin dominance crashing to the mid to low 40s, I'm just going to sell and be happy. And late 2017 into 2018, I'll never forget this time, altcoins went crazy here. Yes, many were going up in a steady way. Some were jumping randomly in here because I got in around this time. It was mid 2017. I remember price action and altcoins still running really good, kind of like we're seeing today. Things were good. Some altcoins were randomly popping off. I was young. I was getting into new altcoins at this time, making good money on some of them. I remember talking with a guy at the gym, laughing off a, a crypto called Dogecoin. Like, why would I buy that? It's just a meme. So stupid. Yeah, why would I want $1 million? What kind of idiot would buy that? Anyways, when we had this, when dominance tanked, this is before I knew about TradingView and all the wonderful charts. When dominance tanked, holy crap, my altcoins went parabolic. And my portfolio pretty much did like a 10, 20, 30x depending on which altcoins I had. I was so happy. I was like, this money is great. Wow, I've gotten into this new asset. I'm going to hold on to this. How high could this go? Could I be a millionaire? and and of course that was very short lived. Now, thankfully, I was able to take some profits and overall make a profit. But instead of taking, even though I did take a certain level of profits, I could have had 5, 6 times more. And I didn't make that mistake last time around. When dominance crashed, I was able to take really good profits from my altcoins, and I'm looking for that to happen again. However, as far as dominance goes, I still believe it can go higher. Now, maybe it's going to sell off a little bit, and some of the Bitcoin, some of the percent of Bitcoin dominance is going to go into altcoins. Let's take a look at one of the leading indicators I like for buy sell signals. We're still on a buy signal on the weekly. We have this doji with a pretty long wick the other way, so maybe that's setting up for a possible reversal to the side to go down. And you can see on the daily that it is going down. Now, whether it stays at those moving averages and then goes back up or gets below, that remains to be seen. I don't typically look at the daily too much, but yeah, that gives me pause for concern because overall, I still think this is early. Personally, I still think this is early. You never know. Maybe after the halving, dominance is going to crash down to here, and we are going to have an early blow off top, and the Fed's going to cut rates. And when they cut rates, that's when markets tank. And if you guys don't want to believe me, I'll show you the red lines are when the Fed cuts rates. We usually have a big tanking in the markets after. The red line's when the Fed cuts rates. This was a spike in inflation at the time. The red line's when the Fed cuts rates. So when the Feds cut rates, I'm going to be very cautious about anything I'm in, especially Bitcoin. I know we were just looking at dominance before. Anything else I want to say about that? So, yeah, I'm a little hesitant. I'm a little hesitant because this feels and reminds me a lot of the mid-cycle top we had in here. I remember questioning all my crypto decisions as we were in here. And when it tanked really low, over here, people are like, well, crypto is the dumbest thing to ever get into. And I was thinking to myself, wait a second, maybe this is the next great opportunity to buy. And maybe this was, the start of my thinking at the time, as I was getting more into investing. Is like when people are fudding the markets and telling you how stupid it is, sometimes you can get great value. And I remember talking to people about how I was in crypto and I did really well. And there were some people in here who were just making fun of me for it. And I remember thinking to myself, you know what? Market psychology 101, look for value when there's fear. And we're going to get the fear and greed here in a second. I was able to buy some cryptos in here and make great gains afterwards. So I was able to buy throughout here. That's why I have these macro fibs drawn out, high to low. I know one of them's upside down here, and that's fine. But yeah, anytime you're under the 0.5 of the macro fib, the high to low, those are great times to accumulate alts. and a lot of them have been running lately. They've gone up a little bit, but overall, alts are starting to do really good. If we just take a look at a couple of them, um, Fetch, this alt is doing very well. Fetch.ai. It has AI in the name, so you know people are going to throw money at it for no reason. But this alt's already done very well. IMX, a gaming token, has done very well. ACH, a lot of alts are looking like this. This is actually most common what I've seen lately is that overall in the last week or so, we've had these altcoins doubling or doing more. Jasmine was one that's done basically a 4x from the bottom. There's been a lot of altcoins doing that. Some of the larger cap altcoins, they've gone up a little bit, but they had their big run, their 3, 4x earlier. So things like Solana, Link, and others, they ran earlier, and more of the small cap altcoins have now been popping off later. And so I've seen this before. I've seen this before in 2017 and in here. And like I said, guys, there will be Bitcoin will shoot up, and then it'll go to the large caps, and then it'll go to the small caps. That doesn't just happen once. That happens overall in the macro, especially at the end when Bitcoin dominance tanks. That really happens more than ever. But that also happens in small little phases, even without it showing up too much on the Bitcoin dominance. So I know some people take a look at Bitcoin dominance and they'll say, well, the pairings against Bitcoin are showing that it's not as valuable. I tend to disagree with that sentiment. And the reason is because if you do your research into altcoins, and I'm going to say a word that you either love or hate, and that's utility. If you take a look at altcoins that might have some possible strong utility or strong communities behind them, then those tend to be ones that do very well. I'm not talking about meme coins. I'm talking about altcoins available on Coinbase and Robinhood. I like to take a look at the charts of those, research those. There are still great times to get in. And even though something like, let's say Jasmine, even though that this one's at 2 cents, might it go up a lot higher? Sure, it could. Or this is an altcoin I was taking a look at earlier. I am not in it, so I'm not shilling it here. Filecoin. Filecoin was as high as 226 back here. Right now, it's at 10. And I'll pull up the market cap on my phone. And if you guys don't know anything about market cap, please learn as much as you can from it, because I see way too many ridiculous videos online making claims that coins are going to go to 10,000 or 100. And when you see these prices, okay, for any of you who are very new, I got to teach this to you. All because Filecoin is a 10 here, that's not the same as Link. That it means it is worth half as much as Link at 20. Okay, you have to take a look at market cap. The numbers are exclusive to their market cap. So Filecoin has a $5.5 billion market cap, and if it's to get up to, so right now it's at 10. If it's to get up to, let's just say 200, back up to this prior all-time high levels, or maybe even higher this time, that would be a 20x. So that means 20 times 5, 100, it would have over $100 billion market cap. That's how market cap works. When people say XRP is going to 10K, it's really stupid, because it means XRP is going to have a $500 trillion market cap, which is literally impossible. The US GDP is like 100 trillion, and Apple, Microsoft, the biggest stocks in the world, are worth 3 trillion. So when people are saying any of these altcoins outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum, those are $1 trillion. Oh, that's my cat's food dispenser going off right there. Sorry for the interruption. If anyone's talking to you or posting videos about certain altcoins getting to $1 trillion, I'm not really going to believe that too strongly. Maybe if you think of some of the strong alts, the top alts like Solana and Link, maybe, but still, I'm not quite as on board with that. So do learn about market cap. That's important to know. And kind of just finishing finishing up this point I'm making, a lot of these altcoins still have a lot of room to run. Now, would I be buying altcoins right now, even though it could do a 20x? I would not. At the very least, guys, go on TradingView, set up an account. It's free. There's different buy-sell indicators you can put up. Here's one, the 1020 MA. This UT bot alert one is more of a confirming buy-sell indicator, so you won't get caught up in as many fake outs. But just at the very least, throw up a buy-sell indicator. And when you get a buy on the weekly, okay, these are different, or the monthly, which is more rare, it's on a larger time scale, that's where I look to buy in. Now, those opportunities are becoming less because a lot of money is starting to now flow into alts. So who knows how many more opportunities we're going to have here. However, I do think there's still going to be some pullbacks. We will see a weekly sell sometime, probably on many of these altcoins, which will then lead to a weekly buy signal. So I'm saying this because, guys, I know that most people, when they hear about an altcoin, especially retail, they get excited, they put in, they know jack squat about the charts. Here at Market Psychology, we're trying to increase the value of your investments. So a good way to do that is, again, to look for value in the markets when there's fear. We'll get to fear and greed index in a little bit. When things are oversold, and something like the relative strength index, you can take a look at other indicators like the MACD when that starts curling up. Buy sell signals when we have a buy on some of these, at the very least on the weekly, then you can maximize your returns. So a lot of times people, they'll hear about a coin and they'll be like, yep, I'm going to throw $1,000 at it, $500. Let's try to get, instead of just getting a 20x here from buying a top where it may come back down again, let's get you a 25x. Doesn't that sound nice? Let's try to increase the value. Now, in crypto, you do, like I said before, you do want to get out as we run up into these blow-off tops when Bitcoin dominance is tanking. And as far as fear and greed, here's the other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about. And by the way, the one website for crypto, fear and greed, my God, it has some of the strangest advertisements on there. So here we got some cool body armor. Is that a gun or a Lego ship? Yeah, it looks like a Lego cruiser ship. Get a tool set, whatever the hell this is. A water bladder. Look at some of this other cool stuff. Yeah, really cool. A cat. Get yourself a cat petting chart. This might be the only useful thing I would ever buy. But oh yeah, there you go, Temu. No wonder. So fear and greed. Here's the other thing that has me cautious right now, guys. Greed is in extreme greed. We're at 83. Anytime we're above 75, it's time to be cautious. In the last year, we've been trending upwards. You can see we were down below 50 back here in September. Those weren't bad times to buy. After the ETF approval, we got to neutral. I was able to get some altcoins that still had value there. Picked up some Jasmine before it went off. That felt good. But right now, we are just spiking. When we go to the max and take a look, and this only goes back so far, 2018, after that blow-off top here. This only goes back to right after that, so I'm sure we were up here. When we had that mid-cycle top, this was one-to-one with where the price was. The price peaked, and greed peaked, and then boom, we went off. We went down. Now, this went up in 6 months. We've been going up from the very bottom for over a year and a half. So that's something else to consider. We went up for 6 months from that bottom. We chopped around for a year. And here, this was March 2020. Guys, you know what time that was. It's when COVID crashed the markets. But here's when it became sort of a leading indicator. Excuse me. When greed was staying up here, and when it accumulates, that tends to tell you something big in price action is coming. So when we were accumulating here, something big in price action did eventually pop off. Here, this was not the top. The top was, that first stop was around May of 2021. I'll show you that on the chart. Right here. Let's get rid of this buy-sell signal. April, May of 21. Okay, May was maybe as it was just selling off. Well, let's even take a look at April. Okay, where was April? Okay, so same thing. Okay, we're a couple dots over. So this became sort of a leading indicator. And right here, the last time we were this high was the very all-time high in crypto. So fear and greed isn't always one-to-one. As you can see, even though we were higher, it doesn't mean we were higher in the greed chart. Because Bitcoin did a 50% correction, got down into the 30,000s, then it went back up, made an all-time high at 69 something around there, and then sold off. Now here at peak fear, that was not the true bottom. The true bottom was in November when FTX went bankrupt and all that stuff happened. So this has been a leading indicator a few times. And then one time, I guess you could say, at least when we had a short spike and then went down, that's when it was more one-to-one. Okay, here is a one-to-one indicator. Here we had some leading indicators as well. So because we're getting up into extreme greed, I'm really curious to see what's going to happen. Now, if we get up and stay in this 80, 90 range and we start accumulating kind of like here, I'm going to think that Bitcoin's really going to rip up high and get, who knows, maybe even into the 100Ks. We'll see. Maybe we are going to have an early top. And I talked about this before. I gave you some foreshadowing. If we zoom way out on the Bitcoin chart, this is on log scale, just like the Bitcoin rainbow chart. Again, values of times log scale. Take a look at this and tell me it doesn't change your perspective. Let's take it off log. What do you see? Now, maybe I should pull up a different one. Here we go. What do you notice right here? Take a look at it for a second. As you can see here, it kind of reminds me of 2017, no? Where we're just having this blow off top. And I've heard people coin the term super cycle. So maybe we're having something like a super cycle, and that doesn't mean that big corrections can't happen, but it does look like it wants to rip up really high. And, you know, the peak of Bitcoin, I could see it getting somewhere around, my guess, the very peak for this next bull run, I could see something maybe a little bit under 200,000. And that's what the rainbow chart shows us as well. So let's throw it back on log. Log's nice and steady. Log's a good way to look at things from a macro perspective. But when we take it off, I mean, does it not make you feel very bullish, like we still have a lot higher to go? So going back to the Bitcoin rainbow chart, let's take a look at some of these orange band areas. So you can see when we had these peaks here, we were in the very red. Oh, and before I get to that, sorry, one last thing, squirrel moment. We've heard about the 4-year cycle. Something I do wonder if it's ever going to come back is here, you know, we had this double peak back here. And this peak, which was around June of 2011, it wasn't 4 years until the next top. It was only 2.5. And so for us to get an early top, I don't think is out of the realm of possibility. Now, we've had 4-year cycle, 4-year cycle, asterisk. We had all that stimulus money get put into the markets, trillions of dollars. That's why we have big inflation problems today. And I do believe that's why we had an early market top. I mean, everything's more expensive, but you saw stocks like Zoom, PayPal, Bitcoin, etc. Everything was running up like crazy. Costs of housing, cars, everything. So I do think we probably would have had a 4-year cycle if we didn't have all that stimulus money. But let's say we top out sometime later this year. Let's say October of 2024. And as you can see in the prior times we were in red. Here we were in the second one down. Let's just say orange to be conservative. So that third box down, the orange, that put us at 136 to 176,000 if we have a blow off top early. Heck, let's even go earlier. Maybe you feel that maybe you're more bearish minded. You feel that the economy is going to start going towards a recession, that when the Fed cuts rates, like I showed you before, that the markets are going to start selling off, and maybe we're going to pump into rate cuts, and they're going to cut rates in June. Let's be like super bullish in the short term here. Maybe we get up between 122 and 160,000. Sounds crazy, guys, but trust me, as someone who's been in crypto the last two cycles, I've been here when it happens. It's nuts. That's when euphoria is coming in. That's when real retail is coming in, and that's when you want to sell. Okay, I'm just telling you, when we get up into these orange red areas, that's when you want to sell. You do not want to hold your bags after. If they cut rates in June, July, and Bitcoin is peaked up in this area, I'm selling. That's me, not financial advice. Now, maybe we get a correction into the halving, shop around, and we peak in the middle of 2025. Let's find June. Where would that orange box put us? 169 to 217,000. Maybe you believe in the 4-year cycle completely. That is your religion. And we are going to peak in November of 2025. Let's even just do like November 1st, like, or as close to it as we can. Bitcoin, look at here. It's showing around 188,000 to 241,000 if we have a 4-year cycle. If we do have a 4-year cycle, I think that would be my most favored outcome, because that way there's a lot more to gain from the markets and we still have more time. There can be corrections and that can be okay. And we don't have to FOMO into the market and rush in. So I would prefer a 4-year cycle. There is one thing that leads me to believe that, I'll get to that in another video. I'm already at 37 minutes here. So just kind of rounding this all out, Bitcoin rainbow chart, take your bets and try not to get too much into the prediction game like so many YouTubers do. I even have to check myself on that. And here at Market Psychology, we need to check our bias. If you are feeling very strongly about something, I want you to take a look at both the positives and the negatives of that. Try to be open-minded. Look at your investments like a robot. Try to remove as much emotion from it as you can. I know your hard-earned money is attached to it, so you want to feel excited. It's going to go up forever. Green candles only. Guys, that is not reality, okay? And if 30% dips in the market is too emotional for you, crypto isn't for you. I'm just going to say it. It's not a good way to look at it. You have to take a look at it from a numbers perspective. And should we get up in those ranges, like at the very least 120,000 if we popped off early on to 200,000, okay, that's when you can be selling and taking those profits. And right now, is there still value? Sure. But like I said, a lot of the altcoins have just had these little mini runs. And at the very least, I know how impatient many of you are. Get yourself one of these buy-sell signal indicators. If you are super patient, you are super nervous, UT bot alerts, it's more of a confirming indicator, not as much of a leading indicator. This one waits more for confirmation, less likely to have fake outs. Put it on the weekly. You can also click the 5-year button. Puts it on the weekly. If you click all, it puts you on monthly. Look, you would have only had a sell and we haven't had a buy yet. I do like the weekly. I think it's more realistic. And look at this. We had a buy signal with ACH at around, here you go, almost 2 pennies. And right now it's near 3 pennies. Yeah, it did a 2x. Maybe you can still get value in ACH because it's not too far off from there. But anyways, all I'm saying, guys, get yourself a buy-sell indicator and at least try to increase your value if you're worried about missing out. And watch Bitcoin dominance. You can type in btc.d. That's how you find Bitcoin dominance. And I'm telling you, if you're buying in now on those buy indicators and you are patient and you are waiting for it to dip, and I just drew this really shitty upward ascending trend line here as well as a downward ascending one. We've tagged stuff here, and yeah, we went under it. Whatever. Maybe it's gonna be lower. You know what? Let's do that. Can we make it lower? Sure, we can go here. We can go here. I think that one's kind of nice. maybe here, here. This one's good. I like this one because that was the true top there in the first time we had it, and we also run into this a lot. We peaked into it. Okay, so maybe you can wait till Bitcoin dominance gets to the low 40%, mid 40%, and when it tanks and gets really red, yeah, that's when your alts can run. Now, how high dominance can go? I'm just going from the prior high to low. Does this trend line have to matter? Well, no. I mean, we went under this one. Guys, trend lines are only good for as long as they're good for. Maybe we go above this trend line. Maybe Bitcoin dominance gets to 60%. Okay, trend lines are meant to be broken. Eventually, they all will. So maybe that happens. But as Bitcoin dominance keeps going up, sometimes alts will chop around a little bit. You got to be okay with that. And I'm telling you, if you're new to investing in alts and you're a very low risk, patient investor, it's okay to see 20% drops, 40% drops. It's going to happen. Just buy and hold. And when Bitcoin dominance tanks, when the rainbow chart gets up into these red areas, that's when, at least the last two times, not financial advice, that's when a lot of the altcoins ripped up, and you want to sell as they go up. Now, that does not mean all altcoins are going to return to their prior all-time highs. I want to be clear about this. We can take a look at Civic, for example. Well, of course, it's not going to show me the full chart. Why would it? CVC. Well, that one's even more messy. We'll try this just a couple more. Okay, let's try. Maybe? Yay, finally. So Civic, CVC, this was, look at here, April 21, we had that top. But it was higher before. Cryptos do not have to reach their prior all-time high. So if you're buying into it, like I looked at Filecoin before, remember how it's 200 and we're currently at 10? Maybe you're like, well, it's going to 20x. Well, it doesn't have to. Not all altcoins return to their prior all-time highs, and some altcoins will stay dead. That is a risk you're taking. So do your own freaking research. All right, guys, I can't stress that enough. And altcoins that I like, that I feel more strongly about, still Link, Solana, IMX, ICP is another one. This one's supposed to have some artificial intelligence stuff tied to it. We'll see. Stuff like Fetch. I like Fetch, but it's already in all-time high area. So how much higher is it going to go? I don't know. Maybe it could 20x from here. Sure, why not? But I truly don't know. Some of these are going to go gangbusters and go God knows how high. It's at 1.5 billion. Maybe this one will be $100 billion market cap altcoin. Maybe. I truly don't know, but it's possible. Sure, maybe you could get a 40x from here. I don't know. So do your research, and it is risky. At the very least, some ways to offset your risk. Look for Bitcoin dominance to crash and come down. This is when alts truly run. Look for the Bitcoin rainbow chart to be in these red colors, the orange-red colors. Get yourself a buy-sell signal indicator. Let's take a look at Ethereum, for example. Let's throw on our buy-sell signal indicator. Okay, we'll throw that on. I swore I turned it on. There we go. And we'll go to the monthly, where there's very few times it shows you should sell. So here would have been kind of too late for Ethereum, but gosh, maybe you got it over here at 140, and by the time we got to sell, it wouldn't have been the very top. You can at least go to the weekly, and if the weekly and the monthly is kind of lining up, that's one way to look at it. The last thing you can take a look at, and this is one of my favorites, something I'm going to be looking for, Pi Cycle Bitcoin high low. Put it on the weekly. This thing has pretty much shown up our lows and our highs. Let me zoom this out a little bit. That was the high. That was near the low. This was the low. That was the high. That was the high. That was the low. Now this one, after the first halving, that was a fake out. So it's not always perfect. We have that one thing to show. Now, what's funny about this? Look how close it was to the halving, and we still went higher. If something like this happen, and there's rate cuts, gosh, that's gonna mess with people because who knows if they're gonna keep cutting rates if inflation starts to come back up again, and then they pause rates, and if they pause rates, it's possible things can go higher again. So I truly don't know what's going to happen this next time around, but this is just another indicator you could look for. Pi cycle high low, and look at that. And it's already getting up near that upper moving average right there, that white line. Now, it doesn't mean that's when we get pi cycle high. We tend to stay above it for a bit. So, anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Talking all about the Bitcoin rainbow chart. I'm telling you, this is the time when dominance is tanking. When we're up in those orange red zones, that's the time. That's the time to take profit. There's still some good deals here, but I am waiting for the next mini correction. Get some of those sell signals to play out on the weekly. Buy the reverse on the weekly. Buy signals. Should it make sense? That's my plan, not financial advice. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you have a wonderful week. Take care.